Hey guys, how's it going? Plastic Guy here, coming back with another figure review, and today we're taking a quick look at this Mezco Ghostface 12 scale Scream action figure. This is going to be similar to the Mezco Michael Myers we looked at here on the channel, as this also came from eBay with no accessories other than what we see in front of us. Again, this cost £40 as is, which is more than half the price of the original figure, which retailed at around £120. But the original figure would come with lots and lots of interchangeable parts and accessories, including weapons and blood effects, plus lots more, and I feel like those are definitely worth having with the figure. But I've made do with what I got for my £40, and with that being said, let's take a closer look at this Mezco Ghostface. So I'll do the same as what I did with the Mezco Michael Myers figure review and shove up everything included with this figure coming at retail, again for around £120. I really like the accessories included with this Mezco piece. My biggest problem with the Mezco Michael Myers figure that we looked at was that I felt like it was a lot of money and the accessories, interchangeable parts, didn't really justify that price point, especially when you compare it to the Ultimate NECA figures. However, this Ghostface comes with a lot, and I do feel like it does justify that higher price point. And I do feel like I'm missing out a wee bit, but again, getting this at such a less reduced price, I'm not complaining too much. We do get a lot of different head sculpts with the original figure. I only got this classic head sculpt from eBay, and if I was to get any head sculpt, this would be the one that I'd want. You can't really go wrong with this Ghostface mask. I wouldn't have minded the likes of the blood splatter one, but I do have that with the NECA releases, and we can compare them later on in this video. So to get the classic mask is definitely a win, I think, overall. It looks great. Again, you can't really go wrong with this. I think it's got a good sculpt to it. Paint's pretty spot on. And what I do like about this one compared to some of our later NECA releases, it isn't just a faceplate swap, it is a full head sculpt that will come off the figure and pour on and off. I'm not a huge fan of the faceplates. I do feel like they aren't as sturdy as a full head sculpt here, so Mezco are doing it right. I think the hood is really nice. It's got a bendy wire running along it, so you can mold it into the preferred shape that you would like. That isn't something that we got with the first NECA Ultimate Ghostface figure. We do eventually get it with later releases with the likes of Ghostface Takes Manhattan. We reviewed that figure here on the channel a year or so ago. And of course the Inferno Ghostface NECA figure as well. Again, we looked at that here on the channel. We can compare that to this figure later on. They did have the wire in the hood, and I do feel like Mezco just do it slightly better. I didn't have to mess around with the wire as much as I did with the NECA figures to get it looking how I wanted, and it sits really nicely once you play around with it a wee bit. I do think the quality of the robe overall is really good. It looks the part, it maneuvers around really well, and I have to say, I think it is overall better than the NECA. The NECA is really nice. I have no complaints with the NECA, but I do feel like this is just a wee bit more premium, and that is what you'd expect with a £120 Mezco figure. Again, comparing it to that Mezco Michael Myers, one of the problems I had with that figure was just it being a bit older. The movement, the articulation was a bit restricted, and the boiler suit on Michael Myers really didn't do it any favours. It bundled up in the shoulders and whatnot, and it did restrict the movement. That is not the case whatsoever with this Ghostface. You can really move the arms around no problem, and the robe does not get in the way. And maybe that's just more of a character design. The robe is a bit more loose in the movies as compared to a tighter bodysuit, boiler suit, but again, from a figure point of view, I've had no problems moving this thing around, and I've been really happy with how the robe is. I do find sometimes it tends to ride up a little, and I do need to pull it down. Sometimes it will move up the way and it does look a wee bit bunched up, and sometimes it will kind of go over that face sculpt. And so when I've been taking photos, it is something that I've looked out for, having to pull the robe down and just make sure his chin is on show so it looks the part. The only other thing I think is worth noting here is the tassels. Is that what you'd call these? Are they tassels? These also have some form of posable quality to it. They have a sort of bendy wire through them as well. I don't know if it is a bendy wire per se, but you can move these around. But what I would say is, I feel like it's maybe more hassle than it's worth. I do tend to pose these around a wee bit, and then the sleeve moves around a lot, and you don't really get to see these the way that, if you spend a bit of time moving these around, I don't feel like it holds the pose overly well when the sleeve moves about. But maybe that's a skill issue. Maybe I need to be a wee bit more patient with them, try them out a wee bit more. But basically, comparing that to a NECA figure where this bit just drapes down, there is no sort of posable quality to it, I have no problem with that, and I maybe even do prefer it overall. Sometimes I think this does look a bit too stiff, which of course is like the opposite effect of what Mezco are going here. Being able to pose it around, you're trying to make it look, you're basically trying to pose it to look natural, but in the movies these would have draped down anyway. I suppose it's more for action poses, but it's not bad at all. I do think personally I prefer the way NECA does it, where it just droops down. Apart from that, I will note as well, like with the sleeves, if that moves up the way, he does have this black sort of undershirt that kind of keeps it hidden. You don't fully notice when the sleeve rides up a bit, which I think is a good thing, especially again if you're going for these action poses. Again, looking at what I did get with the figure, I got this one weapon, which is his classic knife. Again, if I was going to get any weapon with this Ghostface figure, this hunting knife would be the one that I would want. And it looks really nice silver to it, good sculpt, definitely accurate to the film. I'm happy with that. What I really like about this Mezco figure is underneath the robe, pause, that sounded... We'll move on. He's got some really nice trousers. I think these are tailored brilliantly. They look really smart. Ghostface has some style under that robe there. Look at these suit trousers that he's got on. These look brilliant and they add to the quality. These do feel premium. They look incredible. I love these smart trousers that Ghostface is wearing. You can also see the undershirt that he has on, this black sort of long sleeve undershirt. And again, it's all really high quality. I just love how he's got these sort of smart trousers on under the robe and they look brilliant. You've got the boots as well, which again sculpted really nicely. You've got those silver eyelets for the laces. You can even see there is some sculpted laces on the boots. They look like leather, they look nice and worn, good tread on them. So overall, really good quality of figure, really good range of movement. Again, my problem with the Mezco Myers that we looked at, I think this really fixes those problems. There's way more range of movement in the elbows. Again, you can really move the arms around despite having this cloth robe on the figure. There's a lot more movement in the torso area here. You can really twist it left and right. He also has much more of a crunch. The Mezco Myers really didn't have any sort of ab crunch there. You can move them right back. And so my problems with the Mezco Myers are definitely fixed when it comes to this Mezco Ghostface. But again, it is a much newer release from Mezco, and so I think really the downfall of the Mezco Myers was the age of the figure overall. This is brilliant. I would say my biggest flaw with it is these sort of posable tassels. Again, I would have preferred a NECA sort of style to that. And with that being said, let's bring in a couple of the NECA Ghostface figures. So I was going to bring in the NECA Inferno Ghostface at the same time here, but we'll look at that next because there are a few talking points to touch on with this original NECA Ultimate Ghostface release. It is a few years old now. There has been a couple of newer Ghostface NECA figures since this one came out. And I think it shows, picking this up again, taking it out of the box, because I do keep the NECA boxes for display with the window packaging and whatnot. Yeah, I forgot how, I guess, dated this is, or have just kind of realised how dated it is after handling this Mezco. First of all, you can see the NECA figures are a lot taller than your 6-inch scale Mezco figures. And I do prefer the scale of the Mezco overall, and that will become apparent in a little while here. I think the hood on this original NECA is so ridiculous without the bendy wire. It just doesn't really sit well. I think at the time it was fine, especially because there wasn't really that many other Ghostface figures out there, which again I'll talk about when we bring in the McFarlane Movie Maniacs figure. But I think now in hindsight, without the bendy wire here, it does look a bit silly. I do prefer the mask on this Mezco figure as well. I don't think this is too inaccurate to some of the masks we've seen in the film series, but overall I do prefer the look of the Mezco mask here. We also have the brown boots with the Ghostface on the original NECA release. I prefer the black. I think it works well with the rest of the figure. The brown does stand out a little bit too much sometimes. You can see when the light hits it, it becomes immediately more obvious. And I do think the other thing to note as well is the robe stops a lot earlier on this NECA. You can see on the Mezco and again future NECA releases, the robe goes right down to the ankles, and on this NECA figure it stops at the shin area. And so it's not bad, it's not a bad figure, but I wouldn't spend the £40 that newer Ultimate NECA figures cost. If I could get this for 20, I wouldn't be complaining at all, especially because it comes with a lot of accessories. You know, bringing that in, you get 2 alternative hands. Is everything going to fall out here? You get a bunch of weapons at the bottom with the blood effects. You get the voice changer, 3 alternative head sculpts, and that scythe. The scythe came with the Mezco figure and obviously a lot of other weapons. The head sculpts aren't going to be interchangeable with your Mezco, they're way too big. But let's see if any of these weapons would work with the Mezco figure. That's what I try and plan on when I've picked this figure up for a lot less money and a lot less accessories. If I can use these NECA accessories with these Mezco horror figures, then I'm on to a bit of a winner. I will say as well, I've posed that original NECA Ghostface around a fair bit, not that much, like I wouldn't say anywhere near the amount as a lot of my other figures in the collection, and it is quite loose as well. Again, it is a wee bit older, but yeah, it was a bit loose taken out of the box there. I think this knife looks great with this Mezco Ghostface, I'm happy with that, puts into the hand really well. It is a wee bit on the bigger side as to be expected, but yeah, not too bad at all, I'm really happy with that. And then bringing in a newer Ultimate Ghostface Scream NECA action figure, we have the Inferno Ghostface that we looked at here on the channel. And this comes with your usual plethora of weapons, alternative head sculpts. That's the one with the flamethrower. You also get the alternative arms where you can totally change the look of Ghostface from that wee snippet that was in the movie. But this also comes with an alternative style of robe. It does open up in the middle here and you can see that bulletproof vest that he's got on. I like it overall. I do think revisiting it after the Mezco, I do like the Mezco figure a lot. Again, I think the bendy wire works way better with the Mezco. It does allow you to get the hood in a really nice look on the NECA figure, but it is a wee bit more fidgety. The wire is a lot longer and it has one going round the back of the hood, which I don't think is very necessary, especially since playing with the Mezco figure. I don't think we really need that wire in the back. It does cause a wee bit more issues than it's worth. And again, the front is a wee bit messy to pose around. It is a much easier experience with the Mezco figure here. But there is a huge price difference between these two figures. Again, your NECA figure's retailing for around £40. I think you can still pick this figure up at retail. It comes with a lot of different head sculpts, a lot of different weapons, and so these are two great Ghostface figures. It is just going to come down to what one you want to spend the money on. When thinking about what figures to bring in to compare with this Mezco Ghostface, this figure really brought me back because I bought this when I was around 17 on eBay, and at that time there were no Ultimate NECA Ghostface figures. There was only this one, which is the McFarlane Movie Maniacs Ghostface, and an original NECA figure that came out around the time of Scream 4 that was actually pretty rare, and so if you wanted to pick that up on eBay, I remember it was costing upwards of £40. This McFarlane Ghostface you could get for around £20. And just look at it compared to our modern figures here. It really doesn't hold up at all. It still captures the character. I have this out on display, as you can see from some of the dust on it. But Yeah, we have came a long way, and I just think it's really cool to think back to when there weren't really many Ghostface figures out there. You know, if you were a fan of the Scream movies and you wanted this figure, there weren't many options. And to think that there is so many different options now is really cool. I love that as a collector. Having these movies and characters that mean a lot, and at one point not really being able to capture them in figure form, and now having different options to choose from is really, really cool. Here's our Mezco Ghostface next to the Mezco Michael Myers. And again, the reason I really like these Mezco horror figures is they work really well with other 6-inch lines such as Hasbro Marvel Legends, where you can use these more civilian looking Marvel Legends action figures. And so there we have it for our Mezco Ghostface 12 scale Scream action figure. And I love this figure. Would I spend £120 on it? Probably yes. I think the combination of the base figure here, combined with all those interchangeable parts and accessories that you get with this piece, does justify the price point. I can't say the same about the Mezco Michael Myers. I wouldn't spend that retail price for that figure, just based on the interchangeable parts and accessories that come with that. But comparing that figure to this one right here, I feel like it is it's a different experience. You're getting a lot more for the money that you're paying. I love how this thing looks, and I love how this thing moves. It definitely poses around so much better than a NECA figure. The range of movement and articulation has been a blast. Again, I love the scale of these figures, and this is just the best Ghostface action figure that I think you can get in this scale for sure. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. While you're down there, guys, if you could do me a massive favour, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, then please hit that subscribe button. I'm going to leave the link to my Instagram down in the description below, where I'll definitely be posting a lot of pictures of this Ghostface figure up over there. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video right here, and as always, I'll catch yous on the flip-flop later. Cheers.